I think Seattle won this trade in terms of value because, again, Drew Lock can be dealt to someone who's desperate enough for picks or desperate enough for a quarterback. Noah Fant is emerging season after season. Yes, I know he's only been about a 600-700-yard guy a year, anywhere from 40 to 50 receptions, but Noah Fant is still a large basketball-ish type of tight end that can absolutely be a major piece of an offense. And I really hate that Russell Wilson won't be able to go and play with him because as soon as I heard of the Rush trade, I was like, damn, Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton, potentially a healthy KJ Hamler, and then a Noah Fant also, not even talking about the backfield. But again, in terms of value, I think Seattle won this trade. Shelby Harris is not a name that anybody knows, so he can be leveraged as well. But Seattle is always needing trench help from the offensive line to the defensive line. We know that Seattle has struggled in the trenches. You can see it with the pass rush. You can see it with the run defense. You can see it with anything in that aspect. And they're absolutely horrible at drafting over the last 5 years, referring to that slew of picks that they got. So you give them a little more time. You actually give them valuable, worthy picks in these upcoming NFL drafts to potentially correct it. Because I'll go out and say this as well. Speaking of the Seattle Seahawks, I believe that Seattle is personally blowing it up. Pete Carroll is a 70-year-old coach who has way too much control over his team and is defensive-minded. Russell Wilson is now wanted out, and he is officially out. Do y'all understand that Russell Wilson was one of 7 NFL players with a no-trade clause, and he waived it? He had it in his rights to go wherever he wanted, and he chose to obviously go to that physical, do great in it, pass it, whatever was needed, and authorize the trade to the Denver Broncos. Not only is Russell Wilson gone, Bobby Wagner is released as well. An elite top linebacker in this league is now gone. Tell me Seattle's not blowing it up. And correct me if I'm wrong, 678-871-9602. The Seattle Seahawks just gave up their best offensive and defensive player in the same damn day. Tell me they're not blowing it up. Tell me that Tyler Lockett won't be getting out. Tell me that DK Metcalf won't be getting out. Tell me that Jamal Adams probably won't be getting out. It's coming, guys. It's a ripple effect. We've seen it time and time and time again. And now that these quarterbacks can actually move, now that these quarterbacks, according to Aaron Rodgers, can get paid $50 million at 39 years old, anything is possible. I firmly believe that the Seattle Seahawks are about to blow it up. Why do you think that all these picks just came to them? Yes, obviously, Denver sent it out, but when you're in the middle of a rebuild, reboot, whatever y'all want to call it, Seattle's going to have a makeover, okay? Just like New Orleans did, just like other teams in the NFL have had to do. But Seattle's blowing it up. It's a makeover, and we're just going to have to see what happens after that. Now, in terms of, okay, again, who won this trade? The biggest issue in Seattle was clearly the offensive line and the overall defense, especially the secondary. Let's dig into a few numbers here. Broncos had the 20th best offensive line last season, 40 sacks taken overall, while Seahawks had the 25th best offensive line last year, 46 sacks taken overall. So a very slight offensive line upgrade. The Broncos also had the 8th best defensive yards per game last season, while Seattle had the 8th worst. So in perspective, that's about the 24th best defensive yards per game given up last season. Denver also had the 8th best pass yards per game allowed last season. Absolutely great secondary. We know Russell Wilson has potentially fallen victim to that, to that secondary, to that defense not really giving him the support that he needs. And then Denver also had the 8th best, while Seattle had the second to worst, so the 31st, overall passing yards given up per game here. And also when you look into it, the wide receiver core is not slightly, completely the opposite of that, significantly less in Denver than it is in Seattle, from DK and Tyler Lockett to now Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton, plus Noah Fant, who just left. So you don't even have Noah Fant to potentially back up and argue with me and say, okay, maybe outside of them, the tight end presence is better. And don't think I'm on here saying that Jerry Jeudy and Cortland Sutton are not great, but Cortland Sutton does need to stay healthy. And honestly, along with Jeudy as well, they've had some injury, not even injury history in the NFL, within their short tenure. But they've had things cut their season short early in their career to where that's potentially going to bring some reservation around when it comes to big paydays, when it comes to increased workload, when it comes to being a focal point of the offense. You have to be careful with that type of stuff. And of course, a major running back room upgrade for Russell Wilson. He's now going to be dealing with 2 young, healthy running backs. Hopefully that can be a nice 1-2 punch between Melvin Gordon and Javonte Williams getting drafted last year. And then also, again, like we mentioned, the slight offensive line upgrade, an insane defensive upgrade. But I do think the wide receiver core is significantly less in Denver than in Seattle. And it is kind of tough to say, who do you truly think won this trade? Why do you think Denver pursued Russ over Aaron? They're really the same player just about in terms of what you see on the field, what they're able to do, this, that, and the third. But I think the big things were age. Russell Wilson is 5+ years younger than Aaron Rodgers. There is personality. Do you really want to bring in a an Aaron Rodgers to a Denver team that really hasn't had a whole lot of noise going on around it? They've been a pretty quiet, stable team for the most part. Just because they haven't been good doesn't mean they haven't been a stable franchise. I mean, let's just not forget, 2014, 15, 16 years, 2014, 2015, 2016, not those 3 years, but in that little stretch there, Denver was clearly not a horrible football team, and they haven't seen anyone like this since Peyton Manning. I'm not saying Russell Wilson is Peyton Manning, but when you're talking about great leadership, again, age, personality, stability, I think it was pretty cut and dry why the Broncos did not pursue Aaron Rodgers over Russell Wilson. And like I said, they probably had both offers written up, said, look, we're getting one of these guys. They probably didn't want to pay over a certain amount for Rodgers. Rodgers took the deal from Green Bay, of course, and they said, okay, we've got this written up for Russ. We're going to send it out. It's like when you submit an offer. Submit what you got, and I'll present it. Might not get accepted, but I'll at least present it.